Israel struck military bases in Iran in the midst of the night on Saturday, and according to them, the attacks were carried out as a response of the continuous missile attacks by Iran and the Islamic Republic upon Israel. Iran's air defense headquarters, while speaking on the attack, confirmed the death of 2 soldiers in this attack on Ilam, Khuzestan and Tehran. Israel says that the attacks have come as a response to the 1st October attacks conducted by Iran, and that they have a right to defend themselves. Over the next 30 minutes, we understand Israel's perspective and demands and what's needed to de-escalate the situation here. Joining us on the show to talk more about this is Anand Bernstein Reich, who's the president of the Israel-Asia Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Benny Binyamin, former IDF and businessman, also joins us on the show. Last but by no means the least, Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us on the program. Professor Nalapat, your perspective on what's happened over here. Obviously, this retaliation that has come about very recently was all but expected to occur. But the point here is whether Israel is responding to what happened on the 1st of October, which was an unsolicited strike on Israel by Iran, or is this an ongoing phase that Israel describes as a response to the many proxy wars that Iran has facilitated against Israel for the last few years?
Point out that the October 7 attack that took place last year on Israel was clearly indicated an existential threat. For some time, Prime Minister Netanyahu, for reasons that are very clear, basically ignored the threat from Hamas and to some extent from Hezbollah, and concentrated the attention on the West Bank, which is run by a government which has acknowledged the right of Israel to exist. Now, the Charter of Hamas is very clear. It's not simply Israel that has no right to exist. It's also the Jewish people in a way. And I think if that is not an existential threat, I don't know what is. So I'm rather surprised that even after Hamas took control by 2005, 2006, 2007, Charter remained unchanged. I don't know why there was this neglect. I think the perception that Hamas would not be foolish enough to attack the state of Israel. And as far as Hezbollah is concerned, they had never beginning made any secret of their antipathy to the existence of Israel, which, as you know, Vinny, has a perfect right to exist, as far as the Jewish people are concerned, after what they've been through in the previous century, I think the least they can expect is to go back to their ancestral land and settle there. So, having said that, I'd like to say that in my view, this has been a very calibrated and moderated strike, and the reason is basically the US election. I think, I'm just guessing here, Netanyahu's worry would be that if there is a very strong strike and then that provokes a very strong Iranian response, that might help the Democratic candidate to come to power. Whereas I think it's now hardly a secret that between the two, Netanyahu would prefer Trump. And for obvious reasons, Trump and Vance, they've been very forthcoming about the right of Israel to respond and the right of self-defense. So from that point of view, I think until the US election is over, Netanyahu is showing some restraint. For a simple reason, he doesn't want to create a situation where voters in the US believe that there could be a broader conflict. As far as the broader conflict is concerned, in my personal view, depending on the US, and I would say that the odds are favoring a strong US response to any major attack on Israel, because Israel is central to the security of the US in many ways. I think it's very clear that Netanyahu understands that this is an existential threat. Now, as far as Hezbollah is concerned, a significant part of its military wing has been disbanded. The same thing has gone with the Hamas. The Houthis have basically shot themselves in the foot, literally, by going after Israeli tankers, etc. I think that was not very wise of them, given the suffering their people had just been through. As far as Iran is concerned, Vineet, I'd like to close by saying that in my view, if it is clear that the mullahs are not able to protect their proxies, the mullahs in the clerical regime in Iran, I think that will affect the Iranian people's psychology, and you have a huge number of Iranian people who are not happy with the clerical regime. I mean, they were very modern people, and they want to go back to being a modern people, and I think the clerical regime itself will become very shaky if they're not able to protect their proxies, as they clearly are not. So I think from Israel's point of view, given that's an existential struggle, I think you will see it continuing, and I don't see Anthony Blinken's efforts at a more or less permanent ceasefire bearing any fruit beneath.
Valid points, great points. Anand Bernstein-Reich, coming to you now. Professor Nalapat, in fact, used the word existentialist for Israel. And obviously, there are also restraints, like Professor Nalapat also enunciated, that Israel is exercising at this point in time, owing specifically to the American elections. But the fact of the matter is that, Iran is not showing any kind of restraint at this point in time. Apart from the proxy war that it has unleashed, through Hamas and through Hezbollah and the Houthis, it's directly, ready to have this conflict with Israel. What does this mean, for this part of the world and the charter that exists in terms of peace? And how are the Israeli people supporting Mr. Netanyahu when it comes to this escalation?
Thank you, Vineet. The Israeli people support Netanyahu, although there are conflicts within and protest, and we have different opinions. But after all, everyone supports our, I would say, not conflict, but retaliating Iran and actually fighting against Hamas, fighting against Hezbollah, fighting against the Houthi, all those tentacles of this octopus. It will not solve the problem. The problem is the head of the snake. It's Iran. And we all understand that eventually this conflict has to be resolved. So we support Netanyahu, and Israel is only 9 million, and we confronted existential threat in October 7. I totally agree with Professor Madav on that, and through the past 1 year, we feel this threat, and just a few weeks back when we started the operation in Lebanon fighting Hezbollah, we found that they built very similar infrastructure like the tunnels that Hamas had in Gaza. And the intention was to do October 7 in north of Israel like Hamas did in south of Israel. So it's definitely a threat to Israel. And it is about time not to sleep and to fight those that want to kill us. And this is the very clear message that Iran is saying all the time.
Anand, do you think that, considering what has happened in the last few months, even if you go as far as back as October the 7th, 2023, there is any kind of a de-escalation possible diplomatically, to this ever-raging conflict?
I wish there was a diplomatic solution. No one wants to be in this situation. Just to give you a glimpse of what life in Israel means, through the day, missiles are being sent from Hezbollah in the north, from Hamas in the south, and Israel is attacked on a daily basis. In the north of Israel, people left their houses because they couldn't take the risk of their house being bombarded by those missiles from Lebanon. My son that lives in north of Israel is doing a lot of exercise by going up and down to the shelter with the tens of sirens that they have all the time. We don't want this situation. Israel is a peace-seeking nation. But I think that you mentioned the elections in the US. Until the election in the US is over, there will not be a real diplomatic work. The Americans are busy with their issues. Tomorrow, for example, there are talks in Qatar about release of the hostages. Again, it's a very small pact that is developing, but definitely we would be happy to reach an agreement. And I think that here, India, which is a friend with Iran, a friend with Russia, and definitely a friend with Israel, can play a role. I'm calling India to get involved. I mean, I think that Iran would look at India's involvement in a much more respect that they would with American involvement. So this is something that we should keep in mind when we're talking in the India media.
And Anat, let's also try and understand that Iran is also capable of nuclear activity, and so Israel. But the fact of the matter is, like you also said, that it would be great for everyone that there is a diplomatic solution to this. But the fact is that even if there is no direct engagement or conflict between Iran and Israel, the bigger problem here is the proxies that Iran has erected over the last few decades. How is that going to in fact be tackled, considering hypothetically that this a face-to-face conflict ceases to exist in the next few days?
Iran doesn't have an interest that we will reach an agreement with the proxies. That's what proxies are all about. Hamas is almost done. I mean, in a sense that Sinwar is gone, Def is gone, all their big leaders, Ismail Haniyeh is gone. They have very few leaders there, and gradually they lose their power and support. Same goes to Hezbollah, that Nasrallah is already 1 month not with us. So the proxies is not the issue. The issue is Iran, that if they don't have Hezbollah and Hamas, they'll bring the Houthis, they'll bring the Iraqi militia. They will always find some proxy to fight Israel. So after all, we need to reach an understanding with Iran. Israel doesn't want to eliminate Iran. It's Iran that wants to eliminate us. We don't have a border even together. Just for your understanding, we are about 1,500 kilometers away. What do they want from us? That's the question to be asked from Iran. And if it's up to Israel, we would definitely go for a peace and a ceasefire, but I guess that Iran doesn't want it.
Let me also rope in, Benny Benjamin into this conversation. Benny, you've been with us on the show before. Anat has raised a very important point, that there is no shared border with Iran. It does have a border with Iraq, and they've been at odds, and they've been in a war in the 80s and the 90s. What is the agenda here that Iran is trying to in fact unfold? And where does it find the courage to do so, knowing that the Americans have always very strongly been backing Israel?
Actually, I don't think they need a courage for it. They need actually they don't have a base also. But they are doing this because of the religious. I think they want some agenda in the religious, and when they want in religious, they want to show the Arab world that they are strong. So one of the things they are thinking about is Israel, because they know some of the Arab countries, they don't like Israel, they hate Israel. And this is a good base for them. And on this base, they are trying to do fight with us or do war with us. But you have, as Anat told, that we don't have any borders with them, and we don't have any problems with them. Actually, when Shah was there, the king was there, we were one of the best countries, best friends of Iran. And now today also, if you call the Iranian people, I think 70-80% of Iranian people, they like Israel, they want Israel, and you know what? They're asking Israel to fight Iran. That's something I can't believe. If the Iranian people are so happy with Iranian government, I don't think they will ask Israel to fight against that. So, I don't think that Iran is fighting with us because of agenda that they have, that is religious. And it is Sunni and Shia. So they want to rule on. Nothing else. Now about the proxies they don't care. As far they're getting money and bombs and whatever guns and whatever they are getting, they are okay. They can fight because they're getting a lot of money. You have seen the bunkers full of money, full of gold. You have seen what happened there. And I don't think if that money was going to Lebanon was back to 1970s, one of the Paris place, as we call one of the Paris of Middle East. So, that is there. I don't think Iran is having any aims to fight with Israel. Only one aim is there is the religious. Nothing else. Nothing else. And because of that, they were preparing the proxies like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like now what we have in east of Israel, Hamas, ex-Hamas or proxies of Hamas, you can call them. And we are getting, just before 5-10 minutes, I heard that there was a terrorist was killed by the Israeli IDF. So, this thing is nothing to do with the Israeli war. Now, if you can see, 32 years we are suffering from Hezbollah. 32 years. We just said, if you all will attack, we will attack you back. If you all will attack, we will attack you back. Now for completely 1 year, we are getting bombs, we are getting guns, they are fighting with us, but we are not doing anything because we don't want it to open one more side. But then it was enough. It was enough. And Israeli, as per my opinion, Israel was not willing to fight with Lebanon at all. We don't have any problems with Lebanon. Only Hezbollah. Now Hezbollah is once again, what is Hezbollah? It's like Arafat when he was sitting there in Lebanon and he was fighting against us. Same thing Hezbollah. So I mean, this is nothing to do with anything. They just want to throw us in the sea as you know. Nothing else.
All right. Professor Nalapat, what's the solution here? What's the problem here and what's the solution here? This is obviously a conflict which invokes a lot of historical context. Who's supposed to preside over that to end this conflict?
Well, Vineet, I'd be very cautious about using the term Sunni and Shia because what we are seeing is what I have very long ago written about and talked about, the Khomeinist Wahhabi alliance. The alliance between the Khomeinists and the Wahhabi. They're supposed to be antithetical, Shia and Sunni doctrine, but these two have come together in a common hatred of Israel. So these are fringes, and every religion has got its fringe, and I don't think we should mistake the fringe for the entirety of the religion. I mean, in India we have more than 200 million Muslims, and almost all of them, they're doing an exceptionally good job in various fields of Indian society, economy, literature, culture, etc. So having made that point, I'd like to point out, for the mullahs now, the war is existential. Because if the proxies are eliminated, we're seeing that happen, as has correctly been said by one of our Israeli discussants, Hamas, the military wing is almost finished. Hezbollah, frankly, it's on the way to being finished. The Houthis, well, it won't be long before their military capacity, what is left, will be finished. If that happens, it presents an existential threat to the clerical regime in Iran. And I would not agree that we're looking at good relations with Iran no matter what. It's like, frankly, the assumption Netanyahu made. They're looking at good relations with Gaza no matter what. The fact is, Gaza was has been run by a group that is posing an existential threat to Israel. Iran is presently being run by a group posing an existential threat to Israel. And if that group remains in office, I don't see any possibility of a real peace. Maybe a pause, but no real peace. Whereas if Israel succeeds in eliminating the proxies, frankly, and does some serious damage inside Iran, it did almost hours ago, then I think the clerical regime will be on very shaky ground, because I would say more than 90% of the people do not want this clerical regime, and they fought the Shah not so that the Khomeinis will come to power, so the Iranian people will come to power. And now they've been ruled by Khomeinists, and it's the Khomeinis that are creating the problem. It is an existential threat for the Iranian clergy now, and I think, frankly, Prime Minister Netanyahu realizes that. Certainly J.D. Vance, the vice president candidate of the Republican Party, realizes that. Hopefully other US politicians as well. So I don't think this is going to stop until that existential threat is removed. And the only way to remove it in a country as large as Iran is the public themselves removing it, as they did the Shah. And I do believe if this situation goes on, and this punishment inflicted by the IDF goes on, I think we are seeing that loom larger and larger beneath.
Absolutely. And Anant, Mr. Netanyahu has also pledged, that he wants to annihilate the Hamas completely. Is that a possibility you see, with the kind of patronage that they've enjoyed by Iran and countries like Qatar? Do you think that even if you do manage to eliminate 99% of these rebels, for the lack of a better word, there won't be others who will crop up?
Really eliminate Hamas. Hamas is not just a movement, it's a concept. So I'm a bit skeptical that we can eliminate the entire concept, but definitely we can weaken this movement. And if we are able to bring some international coalition that includes forces from Egypt, UAE, Saudi, to rule the place with some UN involvement, then we can definitely weaken the control of Hamas on Gaza and start building Gaza back and bringing some normality into this area. But I'm very skeptical, and I think that most people think that Hamas cannot be really eliminated. We spoke about the great victory. Netanyahu used this frame when we started the war, until the big victory. We understand that it's not possible, because it will mean that we will have to stay for years in Gaza, and Israel doesn't want to control Gaza. We've been there until 2005. We don't want to control other people. That's not Israel is not trying to conquer areas. We want to live in peace in our land and let the Palestinians live their own life, but we need to make sure that they don't use their money to build tunnels and missiles and infrastructure for mass killing of Israelis. So it will take time, but definitely the Hamas will stay. I hope that in a weaker position.
All right. Well, Anat, appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.